Picture this. You're standing in the middle of a vast, sprawling city, skyscrapers clawing at a gray sky, their glass facades glinting like the bars of an invisible prison. The streets hum with life, cars honking, people rushing past, their faces blank with purpose. But you're frozen, rooted to the pavement. You feel it, a weight pressing down on your chest, a tightness you can't explain. You look around, expecting to see chains, walls, something tangible holding you in place. But there's nothing, just the endless flow of the crowd, the rhythm of a life you've been told is yours. And yet you can't move, you can't breathe. You're free to go anywhere, do anything. Or so they say. But every step feels like dragging a shadow you didn't choose. Here's the paradox. You're told you live in a world of freedom, a boundless expanse of choice, yet every decision you make feels like a lock clicking shut. You chose this job, this home, this routine, didn't you? You built this life with your own hands, or did you? Why then does it feel like a cage, not the kind with iron bars or a bolted door, but something subtler, something woven into the air you breathe, the words you speak, the thoughts you think? You're not trapped by force. You're trapped by something you can't even name. What is it? Why can't you break free? And the question that stabs deepest, if this cage is invisible, how do you know it's even there? Take a moment. Look at your life, the one you're living right now, the alarm clock that jolts you awake, the commute you endure, the smile you plaster on when someone asks, "How are you?" It's familiar, isn't it? Comfortable even. But beneath that comfort, there's a restlessness, a whisper you try to ignore. This isn't me. This isn't mine. You push it down, tell yourself it's just stress, just a phase, but it lingers. It's there when you scroll through your phone, seeing lives that seem bolder, freer, truer than yours. It's there when you lie awake at night, staring at the ceiling, wondering why you feel so hollow despite doing everything right. What's stopping you? Why can't you tear it all down and start over? Why does the very idea of freedom feel like a threat? Friedrich Nietzsche steps into this city with you, his gaze piercing through the haze. He saw this cage long before you did. In Thus Spoke Zarathustra, he rails against the herd, the mass of humanity that clings to conformity, to norms, to the safety of the expected. Man is a rope tied between beast and overman, a rope over an abyss, or he writes. You're that rope, stretched taut between what you are and what you could be, but you're not moving. You're dangling, paralyzed by the weight of a life you didn't fully choose. Nietzsche would say this cage isn't just around you, it's inside you, built from the bricks of every should, every must, every rule you've swallowed without question. But here's the tension he leaves you with. If you made this cage, why can't you unmake it? If it's yours, why does it feel like a stranger's hands lock the door? The city buzzes louder now, the noise pressing in, and you're still standing there, caught in the paradox of a freedom that binds. You want to run, to scream, to shatter the glass towers and sprint into the unknown, but something holds you back. Is it fear, habit, or is the cage so perfectly crafted that you've forgotten it's even there? You're not alone in this. Look around. Every face in the crowd carries the same shadow, the same silent ache. We're all trapped, aren't we? But by what? And if we're all in this together, why does it feel so lonely? Let's peel back the surface. Step into your mind where the real bars take shape. Carl Jung would call this the persona, the mask you wear to fit in, to be seen as good, successful, normal. It's not just a face you show the world. It's a cage you've locked yourself inside. You build it piece by piece. The nod you give when you don't agree, the dreams you shelve because they don't pay, the yes you say when you mean no. The persona keeps you safe, but it also keeps you small. Jung would say that beneath it lies the shadow, the wild, untamed part of you that doesn't care about rules or approval. That's the part that wants to break free, to howl at the sky, to live a life that's yours. But you've buried it, haven't you? You've traded it for acceptance, for stability, for a cage that feels like home. Can you feel it stirring now? clawing at the edges of your mind? What happens if you let it out? Your brain doesn't make this easy. Neuroscience steps in with a cold truth. You're wired for this cage. The prefrontal cortex, that bastion of reason, loves patterns. It craves the predictability of routine, the dopamine hit of checking boxes, job done, bills paid, life on track. Step outside that and your amygdala flares, flooding you with cortisol, screaming, "Danger! Unknown territory!" It's a survival trick from a time when straying from the tribe meant death. But now it's a trap. Every time you think about quitting that job, leaving that city, chasing that dream, your brain pulls you back, whispering, "Stay safe, stay here." It's not just fear, it's biology, a neural leash you didn't ask for. How do you fight your own wiring? How do you choose freedom when your brain is begging you to stay caged? The city fades for a moment, and you're back in your life, replaying the choices that brought you here. That degree you got because it was practical. That relationship you stayed in because it was easier. That passion you abandoned because it wasn't realistic. Each one a brick, each one a bar, each one a lie you told yourself to keep going. Jean-Paul Sartre would call this bad faith, living a life that's not your own, pretending you had no choice. In being in nothingness, he insists you're free, radically free, but that freedom terrifies you. It's easier to blame the job, the bills, the expectations, than to admit you chose this cage. Sartre would say you're not trapped, you're hiding. But if you're free, why does it feel like every door is locked? Why does every step toward freedom feel like falling? Let's widen the lens. This isn't just your cage, it's ours. Society built the blueprint, and you followed it. From the moment you were born, you were handed a script. Study hard, work harder, buy the house, climb the ladder, retire, die. Schopenhauer would nod grimly, pointing to the will, the blind force that drives you to want, to strive, to fit in. In The World as Will and Representation, he argues that life is suffering because we're slaves to this endless craving, and society turns it into a machine. You're not just caged by your choices, you're caged by a world that needs you to stay in line, to keep the gears turning. Look at the ads, the influencers, the headlines. They sell you freedom while tightening the bars. Freedom to buy, to post, to conform. How do you escape when the cage is the air you breathe? The tension mounts. You're back on that city street, the skyscrapers closing in, the crowd a blur. You see it now. The cage isn't just in your mind or your life. It's in the way you see yourself. Every "I can't" you've ever said, every "I'm not enough" you've believed, every norm you've bowed to, it's all part of the same prison. Aldous Huxley would call this the brave new world of your soul, a place where you've traded freedom for comfort, truth for distraction. In his dystopia, people don't fight their cages. They love them. Do you? Do you love this life because it's yours or because it's all you know? The noise grows deafening, the weight unbearable, and you're still standing there, trapped by a cage you can't see. Let's dig deeper. Your brain isn't the only conspirator. Your biases are too. The status quo bias keeps you clinging to what's familiar, even when it's killing you. You'd rather stay in a job you hate than risk the unknown, because change feels like chaos. Then there's the sunk cost fallacy. You've invested so much in this life, this cage, that leaving feels like throwing it all away. You're not just trapped by fear, you're trapped by logic, a twisted reasoning that says, this is fine because it's mine. But is it? Or are you just too scared to find out? The city pulses around you, relentless. Let's get personal. I've felt this cage too. Years ago, I stayed in a life that wasn't mine, a job I loathed, a routine that drained me, because it was safe. I told myself I had no choice, that this was just how it is. But one night, staring out my window at a city much like this one, I felt it. The bars I'd built, the lies I'd lived. I wanted to break free, but I didn't know how. Nietzsche was right. It's a rope over an abyss, and I was too afraid to cross. I'm still crossing, step by shaky step. What about you? When did you first feel the bars? When did you stop fighting them? The urgency hits now. You're not just standing in a city, you're standing in your life, and the cage is tightening. Neuroscience says your brain will keep you here. Dopamine rewarding the safe, cortisol punishing the bold. Society says this is your place. Stay in it. Nietzsche says it's a herd. Jung says it's a mask. Sartre says it's a choice. Schopenhauer says it's your fate. They're all screaming at you, and the skyscrapers are closer, the air thinner. This cage isn't just holding you. It's shaping you, shrinking you, silencing you. It's in your slumped shoulders, your forced smiles, your buried dreams. It's in the way we live as a society, chasing likes, hoarding wealth, fearing the other. All of us caged, all of us alone. But what if you could break it? What if you could smash the glass, step off the rope, tear off the mask? Not because it's easy, not because it's safe, but because it's yours. This life, this freedom, this fight. The city trembles, the shadows shift, and you're still here, the cage unyielding. So tell me, why can't you free yourself from the cage of your life? And if you don't, what's left of you when the lights go out?